Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Six-Sided Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, the Taxman, and I'm going to apologize in advance if you guys can hear any background noise during the course of this episode. It's a little bit crazy at my house. We're kind of packing things up, getting ready to list our current house in advance of moving to the new place. And then plus I'm sitting here with Lacey again, so all part of the fun of being a parent and podcaster and all of that kind of fun stuff. So again, bear with me, and hopefully it's not too much of a distraction in this episode. So again, like I said, welcome to the Six-Sided Podcast, and I just want to kick this week off with giving a shout out to our new subscribers on YouTube. That would be Corwin Brown and Cody Simmons. Again, if you guys subscribe to us on YouTube, we give you a shout out at the start of each show, and I very much appreciate it. So we've been getting a ton of subscribers. There's a few more who have subscribed. However, their profiles are set to private, so I cannot give them a shout out at this time. If that's you, you can give me a direct message, and I will be sure to give you a shout out at the start of next week's show. So as usual, you can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com. Use that wonderful YouTube search bar. Type in Six-Sided Podcast. Go ahead and check out our playlist. If you haven't listened to our past episodes, I encourage you to. You can kind of see the format of the show, our not-so-humble beginnings, and where we ended up today. So give us a look on there. Definitely want to check us out on Twitter. That's at @6_podcast. We've had a ton of new followers this past week, so thank you all again very much for that as well. So check us out on there. We're pretty interactive. Like I said, like, subscribe, hit us on YouTube, hit us up on Twitter as well. If you have any comments, questions, queries, you can also shoot us an email, sixsidepod@gmail.com. And again, I'm going to be going over this at the end of the show as well. So that's my little social media plug to kick this week off. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for tuning in the last few weeks. At this time of recording, we are inching our way to 1,000 total views, so that's pretty impressive considering basically we're a nobody. So that's, again, pretty impressive and a big testament to all of our loyal followers, listeners, and friends of the show that we've had since day one. So thank you all very much. This week I will be getting it back into my 4 thoughts on Impact Wrestling. So I'm going to kick that off with my first thought in regards to Impact Wrestling. So my first thought is just in regards to taping the episodes. And I kind of touched on this, I believe it was episode 1 or episode 2. And I'm going to go back to it because I believe now especially it warrants further discussion. So at the time I thought that it would be better, or be best at least, if they could do 1 week of taped and 1 week of live. I think now, especially after the last few weeks events have transpired, that is obviously a much needed way to go. They could have very easily capitalized on the Eddie Edwards, Sami Callihan incident way better if they didn't have another, what is it going to be, maybe a month and a half still of taped episodes. See, by taping so many episodes in a row and not having a live show, at least here and there, to break it up, you're unable to essentially capitalize on anything that might happen. Like, say you have a talent, for example, who gets in hot water, and this did happen last year, by the way, with the El Patron nonsense with Paige. You can't react to it, because you have, like I said, 6 weeks of taped shows ready to go. So what are you going to do? Now you're 6 weeks out until you can do anything about that episode, per se. And then at that time, in this current social media environment, that is way too long to be going without addressing, dealing with, or in this case, capitalizing on a certain situation. So, again, I would like to see them at least move to some kind of a live format. I understand they're doing the live shows on Twitch, the partnerships that they have, and especially the big one coming up with Lucha Underground, which I'm also going to touch on in a second. But in terms of your weekly programming, you are kind of doing yourself a disservice almost by having a big storyline happen or a big incident happen and then being 8 weeks out before you have any sort of new taping or new product going in that direction. So that's just kind of my thought on that aspect of it. So my second thought kind of ties in with the first one, and you'll understand why I say that in a second. But I want to point out that I really enjoy what they're doing with the Austin Aries belt collector gimmick, that he's going to every promotion, defending the title. You know, he could lose it anywhere kind of thing. It's very similar to what Cody Rhodes was doing last year, and the year previous, I believe, is when he started that actually with the Ring of Honor World title. So the reason why I say that kind of relates to my first point is, say he goes out to, we'll just say Progress, for example, and he has an absolute clinic with somebody who is not under contract with another company. Now you're, again, 6 to 8 weeks out because of your previously taped material, that you can't now bring this other talent in to Impact to showcase them, maybe replay that style of match or have a rematch in general. So again, it just, with such a unique way of defending the title and the unique way of putting Austin Aries out there as your champ, and he's going to go to whatever damn, promotion he pleases, essentially, to defend the Impact Championship. Now you can't capitalize on that as well because you have taped so many shows in advance. So again, playing off my first point, but just saying how I enjoy the fact that he is doing that, and I think it's good for the company itself to kind of repair the image that they've had in terms of not being able or not being willing to play ball with other companies. My third thought is I'm curious to see where they go with the new set of tapings with the talent that they have. I understand that they're, with this set of tapings, you can kind of tell that they're mostly finishing up, former storylines. There's a few people who are wrapping up their contracts during this set of tapings. They're kind of tying up loose ends from the old regime, if you want to say. I want to see where they go with the new set of tapings, and I hope that they're going to be focusing in on maybe just one or two feuds in the entire company itself, and then having the rest of, the talent roster just kind of being on standby. I think they need to do a proper job and a well-executed job of getting a few guys over and getting them, and when I mean over, I mean getting them really hot where it's must-see TV. They don't need 8 different storylines that are convoluting every show to where it's, well, how are we going to fit all of this into one show, and everything gets rushed and then you get hot-shotting it. That's not the way to go. I would like to see them, again, focus on 2 or 3 big major storylines involving, well, at that point it would be 6 guys or women tops, and then just having the rest of the roster on standby. Get a couple of guys, simmering on the back burner, but not having a major storyline, and push certain guys properly and make 2 or 3 storylines must-see TV instead of 8 storylines that, okay, well, maybe you see this one this week and maybe you don't see it next week, but what happened 2 weeks previous to it that everybody's forgotten, because nowadays everything gets disseminated and assimilated so fast by the fans that it's, if you're not, going back to it and not focusing in on it and not making that a priority, if you have 8 priorities, it's more things to focus on for the fans. They're less likely to retain anything. And quite frankly, they're less likely to be invested in 8 storylines rather than 2 and 3. So, in a nutshell, I would like to see them build 2 or 3 really hot feuds going into the next set of TV tapings, and then from there you can flush out the rest of your talent roster. Like I said, just having people on the back burner simmering, getting them ready to jump into a feud in the future, rather than having 8 or 9 or 10 or more a la the Russo era of things going on, and then it's at that point so convoluted. And why do you care? Why should you care about 8 feuds? You should only care about, again, 2 or 3. So that's what I think that they should be focusing on, and that's what they should be doing with these next set of TV tapings whenever they happen. I have no idea because, again, I have no idea how many tapings are left now from the start of January. And my last thought is kudos to Impact for doing these teleconferences every Wednesday. It's such a great way to showcase your hot storylines first off, reiterate where the company's going second off, and then showcasing the talent involved in these hot storylines. This is the way that without, and I said it before in my first thought, again, I keep going back to that, but it's a prevailing thought, or so it seems, throughout this entire Four Thoughts theme here tonight. But this is how you could, or can, at least in this case, capitalize on an incident that had happened. This past week you had Sami Callihan on, and again, the guy just further cements that he is absolutely money and absolutely a draw and is must-see TV. The problem is you can't be must-see TV if it's not taped currently. But at least with the teleconference, it's something fresh, and it's a way for them to further tell the story. And now you have Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan facing off during the Lucha Underground versus Impact Wrestling, I guess you could call it Super Show, during quote-unquote WrestleMania weekend, because that's what everybody knows it that weekend as, in April. So very excited to see that match. That's going to be on Twitch, by the way, for everybody who hasn't heard, and that's going to be an absolute bar burner. And the way that you can, again, promote a show like that is through something like these teleconferences, which they've been doing a tremendous job on. And those are all actually getting posted on the Wrestling with Wrestling website. So thanks, Andre, and everyone else for putting those up as well. Go and check them out. It's such an interesting way that they are showcasing and promoting the talents and the storylines they have. I think it's a really good idea. And it's a way to keep certain storylines and certain things current while not having a current up-to-week television show. Now, kicking off this week's action of Impact Wrestling, we had a match featuring Falaba versus Sami Callihan, and I thought that this was a pretty decent opening match. Actually, I'm really digging the fat kids rule the world gimmick that Falaba has going on. For a big guy like him, he moves surprisingly well in the ring. He very much the Yokozuna style way to move, way to be presenting himself in the ring, and way to kind of sell his moves as well. There was a wicked belly-to-belly suplex that he delivered on Sami Callihan in this match. Now, geez, even if he's protecting him, that's still a 400-plus pound man landing on top of you. That cannot feel very good. It was not, a barn burner match by any means, but again, it's the opening match of a night, and we ended up having Sami Callihan win the match with the Death Valley Driver after he cut Falaba off on the second rope. So he gets the pin. Then we have OVE crash the ring, just like a bunch of rabid dogs, and they set up the chair over top of Falaba's head, a la Eddie Edwards, and Sami Callihan has the bat. When, cue the music, Eddie Edwards hits the ring and clears house, and I will say, as great as it was to see him come down to the ring, and by the way, with a lead pipe, he means business, and he naturally looked not very pleased with Sami Callihan. The only thing I didn't like about this was why cue his music? To me, it would mean way more for him to just run down the ring unannounced or even through the crowd and just really get a big pop that way if people go like, holy shit, he's actually here, rather than kind of taking a little bit of it out of the crowd by hitting the music and then he runs down the ramp. Just a little pet peeve of mine. But in any case, we have the segment ending with Eddie Edwards standing strong, helping Falaba up on the ring, with OVE retreating with their tails between their legs. So, pretty good stuff. Good to see Eddie Edwards back in the ring. And like I said, those two are going to tear the house down at that Impact Wrestling Lucha Underground show in April. Now following a few backstage segments, including one of which was Austin Aries and El Patron, we had Jimmy Jacobs and Coco Kong make their way to the ring. And again, another strong promo by Jimmy Jacobs calling out the monster. And we do get a monster come to the ring. We get the devil himself, James Mitchell, come down to the ring. And I haven't seen him. I didn't watch Bound for Glory back in the summer, so I missed when he was on there. So I haven't seen James Mitchell in forever. And I thought these two had a hell of a segment inside the ring, which culminated in James Mitchell thanking Jimmy Jacobs and Kong Kong for bringing back his son, the monster Abyss. And Abyss comes to the ring, and jeez, he's got some fire left in him, that's for damn sure. And him and Kong were exchanging blows. He throws Kong out of the ring, and we have a match finally set for next week. It's going to be Monsters Ball, Kong versus Abyss, and I hope that this thing is a bloodbath. It can honestly be no other way other than that. Finally seeing the fruits of this feud being built. My one teensy little criticism of this is that it's not being done at a pay-per-view event. So you spend 6 weeks or whatever it's been building this feud to not have it culminate in a pay-per-view kind of is, I don't know, a little bit flat. And don't get me wrong, sweet that they're doing it on television, but not so sweet that it's on free television, if you will. That makes sense. So that's my criticism of that. You're kind of hot-shotting this one just to get it on television. Should have been at a pay-per-view, would have made it that much more special. But in any case, who knows? Maybe this is going to build to a bigger feud or a bigger match at Redemption. I guess we'll see how it plays out. But nonetheless, next week is set. Monsters Ball, Kong versus Abyss. Big time looking forward to that one. Now coming out of the commercial break, we had a nice little video package featuring Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary and a little bit of the backstory between these two. And then we finally get the match that I've been looking forward to seeing ever since Taya Valkyrie came back to Impact Wrestling, and that's Valkyrie versus Rosemary. So I thought this was an okay match. It seemed a little bit disjointed to me in parts of it, but at least it felt like a fight. These two obviously do not really care for each other, and you could tell by the way they're working in the ring. Just stiff slaps. They're throwing stiff forearms. The kicks were, they didn't hold very much back. And there was not a whole lot of niceties exchanged in this match. There was some just brutal curb stomps delivered by Taya, just unprotected. Some of those were tough to watch for sure. You had Taya missing a huge moonsault off the top rope. I've never seen her try one of those before. And this match ended up being a double countout. Both ladies went over the top rope. Yeah, hit the 10 count after Rosemary prevented Taya from getting back in the ring. And so after the match, we had a little bit more brawling on the ramp leading to the backstage area. And we had, at one point at the top of the ramp, Taya bent over by the side, or by the end of the ramp selling. And Rosemary ran in to give her the spear. Taya got out of the way and ended up giving Rosemary, again, red wedding, unprotected on the steel ramp, which just a brutal visual to see. And again, Taya Valkyrie outsmarting Rosemary and doing as Taya does, standing or crawling over the body of her victim. So pretty impressive way to end it. I like the double count out because you could have these two go. These two, again, if you booked it properly and let them do what they could do, it kind of seemed in this match that they were held back a little bit. I'm not sure if it was time constraints or what it was. They just kind of seemed not on the same page, and again, like they didn't have all the tools available to them for this match. But if you let them do a no holds barred, for example, or if you let them put together a match that I know they could, easily could headline the Redemption pay-per-views. So I hope that that's where they go with this. I'm not saying that would headline Redemption naturally, but I'm just saying if these two delivered the match, both in terms of quality and in terms of story and psychology that I know they could, then I believe that would be a match that could headline any pay-per-view, not just Impact Wrestling. So again, we'll see where this feud goes from here. So lately I've just been reviewing the matches in terms of Impact and not really talking too much about the backstage segments that, I don't want to get into a whole lot of them, but I gotta talk about this Josh Mathews being Matt Sydal's third eye, or his... Who booked this shit? Like, really? Shit like this is why people make fun of Impact Wrestling. What a stupid storyline. What a stupid culmination of weeks of him talking about his spiritual leader, talking about he's winning the title for this guy, and it's goddamn Josh Mathews. Really? Shit like this is why people make fun of Impact Wrestling. What a goddamn joke. So now you have him just hand the Grand Championship over to Josh Mathews in the middle of the ring. First off, obviously now this title is gone garbage. It was before, but you sure as hell cemented that status now. And second off, it's Josh Mathews. He's a goddamn commentator, and not that great of a one either, to be quite frank. And this is what you're going to do? So, it's so frustrating. All the momentum that Matt Sydal had going into this is gone now. You've now turned him into a complete... He's having a heel. Now he's just an idiot. Like, who the hell would ever listen to Josh Mathews? What a bad segment, and what a terrible direction to take this. And I will say it again, who the hell booked that shit? That was just terrible. Ugh. Talk about leaving a bad taste in your mouth. That was pathetic. So to finish up tonight's events, we have the Feast or Fired match. This match was featuring Eli Drake, Petey Williams, KM, EC3, The Cult Lee, Rahi Raju, Tyrus, and Ishimori. And this, honestly, is a hard match to really even comment on. Just there's way too much going on, both in the ring and outside the ring. You don't really get a sense of any type of storyline, and definitely you don't get any psychology at all. For instance, if the goal of Feast or Fired is to grab the briefcases suspended on top of each of the four corner posts, why in the world would you throw somebody out of the ring and then leave the ring to go after them to inflict more damage? Wouldn't you rather throw them out of the ring and then proceed to climb the pole to grab one of the briefcases? To me, that's always the hardest part about watching a match like this, is I cannot believe that you would rather try and hurt the guy outside the ring rather than stay in the ring and try and grab the briefcase, because I thought that was the whole point of the match. Yeah, this was just a tough one to watch. You could tell even the live crowd had a tough time with it, because they were pretty silent. Not so much because it was boring, but because there's honestly too much to focus on. And a case in point is you have Petey Williams hit a beautiful Canadian Destroyer in the middle of the ring. The problem with that is there's 4 other battles happening outside the ring at the exact same time, so the fans don't know who to focus on. Is it the guy in the ring? Is it the guys outside the ring? Is it the two guys in the crowd? Is it the guys up on the walkway and stage area? It's too much to focus on. It's too busy. There's too many things happening. So like I said, for me to kind of critique this match is almost impossible, as in my opinion, this is almost an uncritiquable match. I can't say that somebody looked really good and somebody didn't because it was just a cluster. I guess that's kind of maybe the point of it, but I don't agree that a match with that kind of a stipulation should be performed or executed in the manner that this one was. And that is my personal opinion. I know that Feast or Fired is a big tradition, and I guess, if it's your cup of tea, it's your cup of tea, but just because it's a tradition doesn't mean that it's a good one. And once again, that's my personal opinion on it. So just give you the results of this one. Petey Williams, EC3, Eli Drake, and the obvious crowd favorite in this one, Moose, each wind up with a case. So we will find out next week what is in each case. So for the 4 available cases, one is a contract for a shot at the Impact Championship. One's a shot at the X Division Championship. One is for the Tag Team Championship, which is why you had Cult of Lee in here. Although anybody could win that case, pick a partner, and then challenge for the Tag Team titles, as has happened multiple times in the past. And then the last one, naturally, is the "You're fired," as Meek Mahan would say. That's the stip of the match. Again, it just not my cup of tea, and especially this time around, it seemed way too convoluted and way too much going in the ring for my taste and for the average fan to be able to focus on. So I must say, all in all, considering the way that the last few episodes have gone, I'm gotta say I'm pretty disappointed with this episode, to be perfectly honest. Not only just for the Feast or Fired match itself, just the way that this show was put together. It was very dialogue based in terms of the presentation of this episode. There's way too many backstage segments, promos. Yeah, it was way too much. Too much trying to advance storylines that don't need to be advanced, or storylines that just need a breather, if you will. I was very disappointed with this episode. And not only that, so I was talking earlier on in this podcast about how they need to be focusing on 2, maybe 3 tops feuds. Well, now you had, coming into this week, the major 3 were Abyss, Joseph Parks, and Kongo Kong. Then you had Rosemary and Ty Valkyrie. And then you had the Sami Callihan and Eddie Edwards feud. Well, now, not only do you have those 3, but you have 4 new storylines coming directly out of this event. It's just, now you're heading into next week with really 7 different angles you're trying to push. And in a 2-hour show, which obviously is not 2 hours because there's commercials, and again, they're going to be throwing in the GWN Rewind or whatever again. That's a lot to try and cram into next week, which means they probably won't, which means you're going to have 1 or 2 go by the wayside, and every time you do that, you risk your fans or people following that storyline to lose interest in it, because if it's not in front of them, or there wasn't a significant enough event that happened the week prior to, then they may not care about the angle going forward. And honestly, that's about the worst thing that you could possibly have happen to a company that's rebuilding trust and rebuilding viewership. So, with all that being said, yeah, I was very disappointed in the way that this show was produced, executed, and booked, essentially. It just didn't make any sense. If you were going to start fresh, storyline wise with the feast or fire thing, then fine. Then they should have focused on those 4 storylines coming out of this match. What they should have done was book the rest of the show with just matches. It shouldn't have been any other storylines being continued in this show specifically. That way it gives everything time to breathe, and you're not, stuck in a position that you are now next week to try and cram all of this stuff essentially into one show. For myself, yeah, this show was a bit of a thumbs down and quite a bit of a downer considering how good both Crossroads and the episode before it were. And just keeping in mind with the Matt Sydal business, why in the world, because I remember when he first came in the company, I want to say about a year and a half ago, and there was zero reaction from the crowd. Every match he had, they sat in their hands. It took a long time to build him to where the fans actually are reacting to him, respect him, cheer him, etc., and actually find him an amusing personality, because he didn't have any when he came in at first. And now you've thrown that all away. It's all thrown out now. Now he's not a heel. He's not anything. He's just somebody that the fans are going to look at like, this guy's the biggest idiot in the company, because he would listen to Josh Mathews, who's the biggest idiot in the company. Incredible. It made no sense. Like, what was the point of building this guy as your legitimate X Division superstar, because apparently now Ishimori is out, to throw him away like this in a throwaway segment? That mind-boggling. Shit like this is the exact reason that people make fun of Impact Wrestling. Who in the world would book something like this and think it's a good idea? First off, A, to get a goddamn commentator involved in something, and then B, to throw away the legacy or a startup thereof of your current X Division champion, and C, waited to file a championship, which has its warts, I agree, but it's still a goddamn championship belt. And you just are going to throw it basically in the dirt in a gimmick thing in the middle of the ring for some dummy commentator. It makes no sense. It's actually super embarrassing. You're telling me that all the people that held that title before, Josh Mathews fits in with them? Give me a break. I don't know who booked that shit, but Jesus Christ. It's mind-boggling. Things like this are what people who don't watch Impact Wrestling will catch something like this on YouTube and go, huh, that company is a bunch of idiots. Just like they were back in 2010 with all the Hogan shit, and just like they were previous to that. It's ridiculous. So just to put a bow on tonight's episode, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, whether it was on YouTube or SoundCloud. You can check us out at www.soundcloud.com/sixsidedpodcast. You can also check us out on YouTube, youtube.com. Use that wonderful, magical search bar, type in Six Sided Podcast, and do us a favor, and yourself naturally, and go ahead and hit the play all button for the video collection of all of our Impact Wrestling reviews. Maybe you missed one, maybe you want to relive a couple, maybe you never heard one and you want to kind of see what the rest of the shows have been about. Definitely want to do that. Make sure you subscribe. Again, beginning of the show, we shout out all the new subscribers. As well, you can find us on Twitter at 6_podcast. And as usual, if you have any feedback for the show, if you want to be a part of the show, I definitely want to shoot us a message on there. And you can also send us an email at sixsidepod@gmail.com. Again, that's sixsidepod@gmail.com. And yeah, drop us a line. Let us know what you thought of the show, what you'd like to see moving forward. I will be putting up a poll this week in regards to our logo. I've had a couple of conversations with a few different people in regards to that. So definitely want to be looking for that. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday that's going to be out. And honestly looking forward to seeing if they can rebound story-wise with next week's episode. So with all that being said, I'm your host, the Taxman, saying, to all of those who were body-shaming Taya Valkyrie this past weekend, what is wrong with you people? In all honesty, she's been going through, and some of you may not know, some health issues, which have affected her both physically and mentally. And you're going to have a bunch of jabronis on Twitter down-talking her and body-shaming and trying to degrade her? No. That kind of stuff needs to stop. And the people perpetrating that type of nonsense need to be held accountable is the truth of it all, which will never happen, unfortunately, because it is social media. But I would say that if any of those people listen to my show, do me a favor and don't. We don't need your kind around here. Positive impacts, positive people, positive thinking. That's what we're looking for. That's what we try and bring every week. And that's what we want to reiterate. So, to all of those who were doing it, shame on you. And to all the ones that were sticking up for her, good on you. And you get big props from me. So, make sure you all take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everyone.